Welcome to VCs Off the Record. This is Real Talk with Real Investors. Your host, Gayle Jennings-O'Byrne, CEO of Wocstar Capital and co-founder of the Wocstar Fund, has spent 30 years in finance. And I'm here too. I'm Victoria Bird. I'm the Chief Content Officer and Creative Director of Wocstar Media. And I've spent 30 years in media. We champion female entrepreneurs, we champion diverse teams, and we're both passionate about stories that change old narratives. We're looking to inform you, inspire you, and help you get your bag and your dreams.
Hey, Victoria. Welcome back to another episode of VCs Off the Record. I'm so glad you're here joining me. How are you feeling? You were sick.
I was sick. I feel better. You know, I don't like being sick. I don't think I'm alone.
Yeah, I don't really like it. I don't like being slowed down.
But I'm quick to go to the doctor today. Like, you know, when I was younger, I wouldn't. But now I'm like at the doctor's. I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? Tell me.
Good healthcare will do that.
Yeah. So good Obamacare.
Good Obamacare will do that. I love it. We have a really interesting show today.
Yeah. I think what I love about today's show is that you and I talk about this a lot. Like because I'm always asking, like, what makes a good founder? What makes a good entrepreneur? But I think we're going to flip it today and think about what makes a good VC. What makes a good venture capitalist? Yeah. Right? What do you think is the seasoning? Yeah,
the seasoning differs depending on the base, the roux.
All right, cooking.
You know, cooking's my love language.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my husband is quite lucky. Like, since COVID and everyone's working from home, he gets like 3 good meals a day. Like, he gets frittatas. Okay. I do these like egg cups.
Okay.
And then like lunch, I'll like do cheddar broccoli from scratch.
But what I love about that is it connects to what I'm seeing a common denominator with all of the people that we've spoken to that are great VCs is a real diverse sort of like life, like a lot of different things that they love, poker, golf, tennis, whatever the things, like having other things that, being diverse in not just who you invest in, but the things that you like.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a natural curiosity about investors.
That's it.
That we're always allowing ourselves to learn and be taught new things and be told about new things. And we get excited about the new frontiers. So I think what makes a good investor, or particularly what you're going to hear from Jackson today, is that he has been on the entrepreneurial journey himself. So his sprinkling, his seasoning is that he can put himself in the same shoes as the people. And so he starts with that, and he really looks at the people aspect of it. But it's interesting because, and what I was listening for is, does it make you invest in circles of comfort and proximity, or even though you're looking at people, can you look at people outside of your own circle? Mm-hmm. And you'll hear about that.
As we always talk about diversity in storytelling, in investing, but how easy is that for somebody who doesn't benefit from it?
So there has to be intentionality.
Yeah.
For sure. But with all things, and what I say to entrepreneurs is, listen, you can have Black excellence and you can be female and fabulous, but it's the excellence and the fabulousness that's going to win at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So lead with the excellence, lead with the fabulousness. Build a great product, build a great company, build a great team. And when you do that, the dollars will come, the customers will come, the investors will come. The Black and the female, that's another layer of fabulousness to it, but it's the excellence and the fabulousness we start with first. So will I say Black excellence? All day. Will I say female fabulous? Absolutely.
All right, I can't wait to hear him talk.
Yeah.
This episode of VCs Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy.
Hey there, Jackson. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of VCs Off the Record.
Happy to be here.
You are my second Jackson on the show. Is that not crazy?
It's an honor.
I don't know. Maybe it's something.
Crazy.
Maybe it's something about New York. There's a lot of Jacksons running around. You are so interesting because you've been at a lot of VC firms, and yet you're so young. What was the journey? I know you went to Boston University. I know you've started a company, but like, what was that journey? Like, walk me through it a little bit. Walk our listeners and viewers through it.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks again for having me. I think that's partly because I started in venture. I got introduced to venture at a young age when I was in college. So as you alluded to, when I was actually in high school, to rewind a little bit further, going into my junior year, I believe, I decided to start a company. And that's sort of one interesting thing. But the second part is I just started the company and left high school full time. And so I actually was in this like independent studies program for the last 2 years of high school, where I'd like attend class in the morning and then leave and go work on my startup for the rest of the day. And I did that for 2 years and then 1 year of college. But thankfully, I had parents who were supportive of that, which was kind of a crazy thing to do at the time.
Yeah. Were they entrepreneurs? Had you seen entrepreneurs?
Partly. I think I was like always fascinated with entrepreneurs and like founders. My parents are kind of small business owners themselves. My dad's a residential general contractor. My mom was a model and Pilates instructor and had done a bunch of different things. And I kind of had this idea, like I was like bored with school. I was like,
but you didn't drop out. You just went independent.
I didn't drop out. Exactly. I still got my, AP credits, and I did all of the coursework and graduated with everyone else.
As you were building a business.
As I was trying to build a business. Which in hindsight, long story short, the company I was trying to start was an alternative to SoFi, which is like the large lending business now that caters to, or used to cater to, really like post-grad students who had student loan debt. We were trying to help students avoid the debt to begin with, as opposed to alleviate the debt or alleviate the problem once you've already accumulated the debt. In hindsight, it was like a noble problem to go try and solve, but as we've seen, a lot of that requires government intervention. And I think SoFi tapped into this kind of interesting trend, which was like most people have debt, and like it's really hard to actually help people avoid getting that debt to begin with.
Yeah.
So we figured that out like 3 years in, and I went to BU. I was like still going to go to college, and unless the business like completely took off immediately, but I was still going to go to college and do my undergrad and get a sort of business degree. And I was doing that, and then we decided to wind down the business about a year into college once we'd kind of figured out it wasn't working. But that like propelled me into like startup world, right? I was like hooked at that point. And so I think I'd done some like startup things freshman year of college. I got introduced sort of randomly. I think it was like because of a flyer I saw on campus to this firm, which is now actually a pretty established firm, but at the time didn't even have a fund called Contrary. And they were looking for people on campus to basically source deals. They were like a dorm room fund or a rough draft ventures, if you're familiar with that model.
Yeah,
the difference was they weren't backed by some large fund. They were raising their own capital, the founder, Eric, to do that. And I interviewed for it, and I got basically lucky enough to be like one of the reps at BU, and eventually like the only rep at BU. And that introduced me to venture capital, because I was like, it was cool. It was like joining a startup, but I was like being an investor where I'd source deals and write memos.
And you were an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs know entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
So you were in a prime spot to be
and I got to do
sourcing.
that for 3 years, basically. So I was like working this like part-time unpaid venture job for 3 years in college. And that made me realize I liked the other side of the table a lot, the idea of like working with many founders instead of doing one. And did an internship over the summer, my junior year, liked it even more, and then kind of pursued it full-time my senior year. Worked for a fund for the entirety of my senior year, and ultimately joined that fund out of college full-time. And so that was like my foray, I guess, into full-time venture, and then eventually 2.5 years there, and then now 3 years at my current fund, Metaprop.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you for walking me through that. I love how it started in high school.
Yeah, young.
I love it. Very cool. Tell me about Metaprop.
Yeah, so Metaprop is the longest standing, largest early stage fund dedicated to PropTech.
And back us up for our audience. What PropTech
Yeah,
is.
PropTech, so like the literal definition of PropTech is property technology. It's anything that touches a property. It's, often sort of put in the same sort of sentence as like real estate tech. Nowadays, and the way we look at it, so back in, I don't know, the early 2010s, which is when kind of the fund was getting started, PropTech was like not a word. It was not an industry. They, I think, coined the term PropTech, or like maybe I think jokingly they talk about having the trademark to it. They wrote the book on PropTech called PropTech 101. They had come from this world of like angel investing in the space, but also having real estate experience and realizing that there were a lot of strategic real estate companies, large, brokerage firms or whatever, that were being introduced to technology all of a sudden, but not really understanding how to use it or how to implement it or how to think about it. So they started the firm actually as like this like mini consulting shop to help bring those two ideas together, became an accelerator, and then eventually an institutional fund. And it's sort of been an institutional fund ever since for the last 8 years or so. So now we invest in what we call sort of any technology enabling the built world, which includes traditional property tech. Property management software is a good example of that, anything touching the brokerage world, but also includes, things that really touch a physical asset at all, right? So it could be construction software, right? It could be home buying solutions, all these kind of alternative home buying platforms. There are many, many different ways you define it: asset type, geography, step of the value chain. And we've been doing it institutionally now for close to 10 years. We're on our 4th early stage fund. We have a small growth fund that does Series B and beyond now. The early stage fund does pre-seed through Series A, based here in the city.
Gotcha. I have so many questions. Let me see if I can put them in some sort of order. In the technology, are you seeing green and sustainability as the theme, as sort of thematic to the technologies that are being pitched to you?
For sure. I mean, it's there was a lot of there's sort of like regulatory tailwinds that create necessity for building owners, for instance, to like manage or measure carbon emissions. I think the stat is 40% of carbon emissions are the result are due to like buildings and commercial real estate. So it's a big part of that problem. There's IRA funding that has caused a lot of people to think about kind of different financing solutions for like upgrading their homes with new kind of sustainable utilities. But we kind of break down, I think a lot of it comes down to like, if you think of a building, right, it's like sustainable materials that actually is like, how do you build a building more sustainably? That's right. And how do you operate, and then operations, and like, how do you operate that building more sustainably? And that's a lot of just like utilities management or facilities management. And those are usually like the two vectors that we think about, but there's a lot of activity in the space. A lot of times there's a little bit of like greenwashing, right? A lot of people are kind of just saying they're doing sustainability and not really, but there are some companies that have really kind of cracked it in a pretty big way.
It's interesting you say that, because with the greenhouse gas reduction fund, not what, 23 billion that's going to hit the street. I hope that people aren't thinking of this in terms of greenwashing, and that we're really being disruptive and innovative in what companies we really stand up and underwrite and fund, and hopefully scale. Okay, so the two types of funds you guys have, the early stage funds, what kind of check sizes are you writing in that space versus on the growth side?
Yeah.
Can you help our listeners understand?
So on the early stage side, which is like where I spend the bulk of my time, we will write checks of up to about $2.5 million. Is kind of our max. I'd say the average is like 1 to 2. We can flex down all the way to a couple $100K, and we can flex up if we need to, but it's sort of within that band.
What kind of rounds are they raising?
Yeah, it's typically our sweet spot seed. So it's a traditional seed round. We can write a $1 to $2 million check, lead or co-lead it in most cases.
But are they like raising 5? Or are they raising?
I'd say like 3 to 5. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So you guys take a big position then.
Yeah, we do. We increasingly over time have tried to do that as fund sizes have grown, as our fund sizes have grown, and we've sort of concentrated the portfolio a little bit more. We want to be a lead investor instead of just kind of a smaller follow check. We want to sit on the board. We want to be pretty active in our sort of involvement. I think our value add beyond our check or the money, which is really a commodity at this point, is the strategic network that we have. Many of our LPs are large real estate companies. And so it's a network that we sort of unlock for portfolio companies that's often customer introductions or talent.
Makes sense.
Then on the growth fund, we do follow-on checks, just given sort of how big it is and how we sort of play it. And those are typically 1 to 3 million.
Okay, 1 to 3. Gotcha. So what kind of equity ownership percentage are you guys holding? Is it like from 5 to 10?
It definitely varies. I think our target, which, within our sweet spot seed is, call it 10 to 12. I think, we don't always get that number, but that's kind of where we'd like to be, understanding that we get diluted in all of that too. But it's sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower. And it also depends on the stage. At Series A, we're probably not getting as much.
That's right. But I'm glad our listeners are hearing that, because I want them to know that when they raise from VCs like us, there's ownership, and these are large chunks that when we, get on the cap table, that we will be owning in the companies. Tell me this. I'm going to flip it. I was going to ask you, what are 3 things you look for in investment? But let me start it this way. What are 3 things that would make you say no to an investment?
I'm very, so as an investor, for better or worse, I'm a very people-oriented investor. Perhaps it's a good strategy at times and not a great strategy at other times. I sort of gravitate towards the person. And so I don't look at things through a thematic lens, if that makes sense. I don't kind of look at an industry top down and market map it and try to find, talk to all the companies in that space and pick the right one.
What? You mean all that stuff that makes us sound so cool and smart?
Lots of investors do that. And I found it personally to be a waste of time. But I'd rather
I'm not judging as I'm laughing through it. I'm really not.
I mean, to each their own, right? Like I think everyone's got their thing. I sort of, I guess I equate it to more like serendipity. I'd rather meet sort of a lot of random people, figure out who really resonates with me, and then figure out if I like the market and the product from there, and kind of do it bottoms up. But so in that vein, I mean, I look for people that are very action oriented, right? They're like someone that is quick, able to like, you can just tell their like pace of execution is like much faster than what you're typically seeing on average in terms of like the velocity. I think there's also this, it seems obvious, but it's not always the case at the early stages, this like command of their business, their like understanding of the numbers and the levers, and how if they invest $1 in this thing or that thing, it tweaks the model in such a way. That's pretty rare for like a seed stage founder to have that kind of grasping command of. I look for that. I do look for big kind of end markets. At the same time, I'd rather a sort of founder build a very niche point solution than try to build a platform out of the gates. I think that's a lot harder. I think if they can like build a really good product in a small market first and expand from there, the like market size, if it's sticky enough, will probably be big. And so I'd rather kind of focus on this like very sticky point solution than this broad platform with a lot of different use cases early on.
That makes sense, because then you're really getting to a place where can they defend that market share, because they've built a niche, they've built some stickiness, as opposed to build something so big and vague. Let me ask you this. So if part of your first filter or screen is this sort of likability or this respect for the founder and what they're building, and their command of the market and the execution of it, does it lend you to like folks that look like you? Like, can you, or does it, I mean, like, do you invest in Black women? I mean, does it get you to places and people that wouldn't maybe not normally meet your radar? Because some of the criticism we have in our community is that we kind of invest in people that look like us, that we know, and, are in our same circles. But so when you hear that, you think, oh, is he just investing in bros that look like him? Or are you able to really like expand what, who those founders are? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I've quite figured out, like, the short answer is no. I mean, I try to eliminate as much bias as I can. It's quite hard to do. It's like hard to be self-aware, I think, at times. And it's like something I definitely want to improve or find ways to improve at. I think as a firm, we're pretty aware of diversity and bias and how we can think about sort of overcoming that and in the founders we back. And I think as a firm, we've done a pretty good job overall if you look at the portfolio of having a diverse sampling of people and backgrounds and all shapes and sizes. But it is super hard to do. And I think a lot about my founder type because I think that's like, I've heard this kind of word thrown around is you have a type, like your founder is like, you have a type. And I've started to kind of get a feel for what that is. And it's often action. It's like, it has something to do with how they act and less about like what they look like or where they come from. Yeah. So I try to lean into that more than anything.
Okay. I like that. And listen, it's both ways, right? Like our firm is Wocstar. It stands for Women of Color Stars. So you could say, oh, are they just investing in women of color? But it's really having this sense of a female forward screen to making sure that there's a competitive advantage that includes different voices. But in all the work, we have to be intentional too, to be inclusive. So
totally.
Yeah, so I think it's across the board. All right, switching gears a little bit. Where do you hang out and like meet founders?
Yeah.
Like, are you a SoCap guy? Are you like New York Tech Week? I love that you and Metaprop are Venture Access Alliance members. So I know you hang out at VAA events.
Yeah, we do
here
a lot
in
of
the
that.
city. But like, where do you meet founders? Or are you just so busy just looking at decks? Do you ever get out of the office? Like,
it's hard. I mean, you have to balance it. I think it's kind of it ebbs and flows a little bit. Sometimes you're kind of just very reactive as an investor because there's so much coming through your inbox and over calls and everything that you forget that you have to get out there and be proactive. On the proactive side, I mean, we do attend a bunch of conferences. We have a pretty good brand in the space, and so we do get a lot of inbound. I'm an investor that believes pretty hard in outbound and cold, like sending a cold email. It's much more efficient than waiting on an intro. And so we do a lot of that. We have different sort of platforms that we use to like create a top of funnel for it. And then we do events. Like I host poker is like my thing. I host this poker night for New York City tech people, founders, investors. It's got over 300 people in it. And that has become like its own, there's a lot of interesting people that come through that channel.
Oh my God, that's
crazy. It is
crazy.
Quite big. Not 300 people do not show up every month or week.
No, but they're in
they are in the community.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have no poker face and I have no money, so I will not be there.
It's a bad hobby.
Oh, I love that, a bad hobby. Now you have another hobby too, right? You paint.
I do.
Are you like Bob, what's his face? You like...
Well, funny enough,
you don't have the gray afro.
I'm like Jackson Pollock, which is weird. We also share the same birthday, which is really strange. I mean, my style of art, I'm not as good as Jackson Pollock, but my style
Did
is
you hear
similar.
that, people? He is as good as Jackson Pollock.
When I found out we had the same birthday, I thought that was really strange.
Wow.
But,
that's the universe speaking to you.
Yeah, exactly. That and I run. I'm sort of a newer runner, but just did the New York Marathon for the first time. And
oh my gosh.
That's amazing. Another one in April. So that is my other big hobby: poker, painting, and running.
Amazing. Now, I see.
Yes, recently married.
Got to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Come on.
2 months, a little over 2 months.
Oh wow! Like really recently. Yeah. Wow! Like you probably haven't even opened all the wedding gifts.
Probably not.
You guys sent your thank you cards?
We have not.
Yeah, so you're newly married.
Yeah.
You have a year though. You're good.
Yeah, that's the standard, I think. So we should be okay.
Yeah, you're good. All right. Last couple of things, and I'm gonna let you get out of here. I know you got a busy day. How's the best way for people to reach you? Like, are you a LinkedIn guy? Are you an email guy?
Email for sure. The amount of times, so my email is in my LinkedIn bio, and the amount of times I get a cold outreach over LinkedIn, and then I sort of respond, please email me, or that's great, I'd love to chat, email me, and then they ask like, what's your email? It's easy for me to type, but it's also in the LinkedIn bio, so I sort of point people there and try to get people just to email me.
So what is it, Jackson at Metaprop?
J Federer at metaprop.com.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah.
Easy enough.
I gave a speech not too long ago, and during it, I gave my email towards the end. And one of the coordinators of the conference came up to me afterwards, and they're like, you did not have to do that. And I was like, it's fine. Like, we're in the business of meeting people. Like,
that's what our inbox is for.
Yeah.
Although I'm terrible at managing my inbox, so bear with me if it takes a while.
If there was someone that you could invite to be on here, who would it be? Who should be our next guest?
Anyone?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, make it someone either you know or I can get to.
Right. There is a sort of friend / peer of mine that's very events kind of brand oriented that I think would be an interesting person to have on the podcast. His name's Dylan. I'm going to butcher his last name. It's Sikowitz.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up with you.
Yeah, South Park Commons, which is a very interesting fund. They just opened a New York office. He'd be a great person to have.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, no, I'd love that because I'm always wanting our audience to meet other cool people, and cool people know cool people. So I love that.
Shout out to Dylan.
So you run, you play poker, and you paint. Do you read?
I do.
You
read.
reading anything good?
I just finished a 100-page book on the golf swing, which is like, it's supposed, it sounds crazy, but it's written by like Ben Hogan, who's like a golf legend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposedly like the book on like if you're starting out in golf, like how to swing the golf club. And I needed a book to read and needed something that was relatively short.
And it's 100 pages.
It's 100 pages. I hadn't read it. It was sitting on my bookshelf, like staring at me. And I finished it over the weekend, and it's very dense for 100 pages. Like you really need to practice with it. You can't just read it.
Were you like underlining and highlighting stuff?
Now when I have my clubs, which I don't have with me right now, I'll actually go back to the book and practice the things that are in it. But
oh, fascinating. Does he talk about a chip shot? Because I need to practice.
None of that. He literally talks.
The
book is broken up into the grip, your stance and posture, your backswing, and your downswing / follow through. Those are it.
Oh, interesting. My golf swing is actually really good.
I'm terrible.
But and now everyone who's listening is going to be like, all right, we got to go play golf with her and see if this is true.
It's a great game.
No, I was playing like 3 days a week during the summer. It's funny because my mom and husband would be like wanting to play like a fourth day, like on Sunday. And I was like, no, it's the Lord's Day. My mom's like, what? No, come on. Let's do the back
Still
nine.
golf. Yeah, golf never sleeps.
I was trying to get out of playing a fourth day. But it's my chip shot I need to work on.
That's the thing. I need to work on everything.
Oh,
golf,
I mean, listen, I got to improve in all areas, but that's the one I'm most thinking about now because that's killing me. That can eat up 2 strokes.
I'm probably the best at that. That's like my best part is my like short game chip shot, which is funny because I can't do anything else. But it was my COVID hobby, so it's fairly new for me. But
okay.
And I could play a lot during COVID, and now I can't. But
yeah, I've been playing. Gosh, I don't know, a few decades, 3 or 4 decades.
That's kind of what I need, I think.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, it's the most challenging sport I've played, so I enjoy it though.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a social one too.
Very social. It's also nice to be out on the golf course and to play, like, you could theoretically play a different course like every time you play, and they're all so different.
That's right. Yeah, we started, my husband and I, years ago, playing all the public courses around New York. Going out like Staten Island.
Yeah.
Bethpage is public.
Bethpage is really nice.
Then Cortland,
Also
a couple
super
great ones
park.
in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All righty, my friend, you have got a busy day. I'm going to let you get back to it. But thank you so much,
Thank
for
you.
being on the show, for you guys being a Venture Access Alliance member. Thank you for all you guys do to like hang with the community, like founders. You said it yourself. You guys have a great brand, and it's because you guys really are like friends of founders. You guys.
We appreciate that. This is a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
This episode of VCs Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy. Okay, so he's interesting.
He's so interesting. Can we just start with him starting a company in high school? Like, I thought he was going to say like a t-shirt company.
Lemonade stand.
Lemonade stand, right?
Yeah.
But like to be thinking about student debt and coming up with a company, a technology solution around how to even prevent student debt in the first place.
Yeah, it's
and thinking about
amazing.
government regulation, right?
It's a forward thinking. It's a permission to dream and then actualize those dreams.
He was dreaming big in high school.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting because as he was talking, I was trying to think if I had gone to my parents with that same idea or another idea, I'd like to think that they would allow me to do independent study and go pursue it. Now, I don't know with what money I'd be pursuing it. And but I think the first reaction would be, Gayle, you better get your butt to school on Monday. Like, we're not playing with you, right? Like, just the concept of like leaving school and starting a business. I would rather be like, no, listen, we got you into this good school. Like, you're not leaving here. Like, you finish and get your high school degree.
Yeah, I think for me, I know we're in the same age group.
I'm older.
No, I'm older.
No, I think I'm older.
I'm older. We'll look later.
Okay.
I trust. I know.
I'm pretty sure I'm older.
All right, we'll discuss. Yeah. We're not going to pull out the driver's license.
Not on camera.
Not
anyway.
on camera. But you know what?
I was gonna say
I ain't no problem. My birthday is coming up. I'm gonna be 58.
I turned 55 this year,
So
I made the Forbes 50 over 50 list.
Right, and
I ain't got nothing to be ashamed of.
I ain't got nothing to be ashamed
I'm
of.
55 and fabulous.
Right, I'm 58, and I'm sitting next to the person who was on the Forbes 50 over 50.
And listen, I like this age. I look back at 25. I was young and dumb. I was still fabulous, but I was
dumb.
I did
I
some dumb stuff.
I reject the dumb. I did dumb stuff.
But I started jogging, and I was like, why am I jogging in my 50s? Like, these are some old ass knees to now be using in this way.
Look, he just ran the marathon for the first. He's doing everything.
He
just got married.
He got married. He got this whole 300 plus poker community.
Yeah.
Which I love.
What I wanted to ask him, and I forgot. How many deals get locked down at that poker game? Because you see, I love that you asked him about investing in diverse teams and how that fits into his model, and I felt like he answered it.
He'd answered it very well.
But this is where I think the rubber in the road. I don't know what that means, but this is where I think they diverge, is the deals that happen at the poker games happen within the circles that you play poker with, and who gets invited to the poker games, right? And that's where I think the companies or the founders that are excellent and fabulous, but also happen to be women and Black, might not get invited.
Yeah. That is true, yes. And listen, at the end of the day, this is about human behavior.
Right. And this is not a slam. This
No,
is
no. But it's about human behavior. So for all the founders listening, the takeaway is that we have to just make sure we are in those rooms. We cannot wait for an invitation. Sometimes we're going to have to crash the party. We're going to have to get to that conference, that hackathon, that meetup, whatever it is, right? New York Tech Week, whatever the thing is. We have to be intentional about where we go and where we meet people as well. I've stopped waiting for invitations.
Yeah.
People aren't going to invite me to the poker. Who thinks of me as a poker player? Nobody.
But also goes back to so many things that we talk about. Be likable.
But guess what? I might go to that poker game next time.
Right. Be likable. Don't be an asshole. Have different interests so that when someone says, I play poker, I golf, you were like, I got my chip. I was like, I don't even know what that means, the chip. But okay.
Yeah, but that goes back to that curiousness, right? Yes. Like, how did I skydive? Because I was curious about skydiving.
Yeah.
How did I learn to sail? Because I, saw boats and I was like, I want to do that.
You're so bougie.
It does sound it when I say it like that.
The sailboating.
It does sound like it when I say it.
I'm a chef.
No, look, I'm just a cook. I'm just cooking. I'm cooking. I'm putting my foot in it.
What did you like about what he talked about? What resonated with you?
I don't know if you picked this up.
Okay.
But he is cool with cold call emails. So that I think combats or offsets the proximity.
Yes.
Which is, yes, he may have certain circles. Yes, there's certain people that may play poker, right? He's at only different conferences, whatnot. But he's cool with
just reach out.
Cold call, reach out.
He said he has his email on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. So now anyone who's listening or watching, if you think that your company is a fit for Metaprop, now you have a way, and now you have a inroad into that organization.
Yeah.
But this is where the rubber meets the road for founders too, is when we have access, we have to access it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not enough to listen to the podcast and then not follow up with these folks. They're on this podcast because they want to meet our community of entrepreneurs.
And let me say, the follow up to that from an outsider's point of view, who is neither a founder nor an investor. I know that sounds scary, but I'd rather someone get the no than not get the opportunity for the yes, right? Because it's scary to like reach out. It's scary to like take the shot, shoot the shot, you know?
Yeah, I have a theory that I'm working out in my head. I'll try it here.
Okay.
I wonder, or I think, are guys maybe better at pitching and fundraising and sales because socially they have to do a lot of asking in life and get told no or yes often. So think about social norms. It's men that ask women out on dates. It's a man that proposes to a woman. I'm talking.
I mean, like in a
traditional.
heteronormal.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm
relationship.
talking in a traditional heteronormal, right? So there's this asking out on a date, asking for a phone number, walking across the high school gym to ask to dance at the prom, you know, proposing, right? All those heteronormal. So maybe men have been socially programmed or had more social practice in the art of asking and being okay with being told no and still getting up and doing it again and again. Yeah. And we, over the years, have been taught to wait to be asked or invited or
get permission.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's seeped into.
I know for myself that there is, the more I care about something, the more afraid I am of the no, whatever the no is coming from or about. And I think that's where, for me, it lies. Like if I don't want to know that it's not going to happen, or if I, you know.
Yeah, if you don't ask, then you won't get told no.
Yeah.
So
that's a good area to work on, though, right?
Absolutely. And my mom started with me very young, and it stayed with me. She'd always say, Gayle, no one ever died from the word no. I'd be like, what? She'd be like, no one's ever died from the word no. She goes, go get the paper. Go get the paper. And I'd get the paper. She'd be like, turn it to the obituaries. And she'd be like, read the obituaries. Tell me in there if anyone's died from the word no. Now, I couldn't read well, so it was also her way of getting me to practice reading. But yeah, it started early on of like, go ahead and ask. You're not going to, it's not fatal.
Yeah. Well, to me, I at least know what's going on. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more comfortable with asking for what I want. Like someone wrote us, we have a contract with a vendor and yesterday I just wrote them, I was like, I want to fix this. I want to change this contract. No reason.
Listen, you're becoming a great negotiator.
Well, I'm just like, he was like, Max, and he was like, okay, you want to have a meeting? I'm like, yeah, 12 o'clock. It's like, and I was like, yeah, I'm thinking. And he's like, okay, well, we could do this. I was like, okay, great.
Because no one ever died from the word no.
Yeah.
No, listen, I love negotiating. But you know what it is about negotiating is I also like trying to figure out what the other side wants. Like, what do you really want? Like, do you need this in there? Do you need that in there? I'm going to need this. What do you need? Like that, I think, is probably coming back to the side. I just like the people part of figuring when I'm negotiating.
So I think that's another thing that makes a good VC. They got to like that. They got to like the negotiating. I watch Selling Sunset, for example, and I am mortified by the back and forth of the price of the house, the asking price, the negotiating the price. I'm like, just stop it. Like, it makes me physically uncomfortable.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I watched so real estate reality shows are not my jam, but I watched a couple years ago. And the thing that I saw was the realtor just gets the offer and then just presents it to you and then gets back on the phone and presents it to the other side. And I was like, they're not really doing the negotiating. I was so surprised by that. And I guess they can. I guess the way it's set up is they just present the offer to their client and then present back. But I remember when I bought my place here in New York, the realtor, her name is Vicky Barron, she's amazing. She said, I like negotiating. And I said, I do too. And true to heart, she was a negotiator. And she and I would talk about the negotiating strategy and what we were going to offer and what that would signal, such that even after we had all agreed on the purchase price of the co-op, she and I were like, feel like there's a few more dollars on the table. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I called her. She's like, I was thinking the same thing. And she goes, what do you think? And I go, I just feel like when you rent an apartment, they paint it again, right? When you live in an apartment, they'll paint it again all back to white or whatever. And so you walk in with this like new paint smell of, not that that's a good smell. You should be breathing in fumes. But it's like this nice crisp white when you rent an apartment.
It's a fresh start.
Fresh start. I was like, why am I going to walk into this lovely duplex that I've just purchased and I can still see like the
smoke outline of the painting.
Outline of the painting where he had the TV, da-da-da. I was like, it should have that new paint as well, that fresh start. And she was like, yeah. So she's like, why don't we get, let's call it a decorator's allowance. So I was like, I like it. So we figured out what we wanted to ask for, how much is our decorator's allowance. She went back. The realtor was like, what the hell? His realtor. But he was like, I get it. I was like, yeah, like it's my first big purchase, my first time, purchasing an apartment, any kind of real estate. I was like, give me the new car smell. And he, the buyer, totally got it. He's like, I get it.
You mean the seller?
The seller. He was like, I totally get it. So he agreed to our quote unquote decorator's allowance. Now we go into the closing. We're all sitting there at the table, signing all the documents. And he goes, oh, Gayla, David, my husband. He's like, he wasn't even my husband then. He's my fiance. I'm not giving the milk away for free. He's my fiance. And he goes, oh, I have your check for you. You should have heard the pins drop in the room. People were dropping their pins and were like, what? Because they were all in the middle of signing all these documents, right? They're like, what is going on? And I was like, oh, he's paying us and giving us a decorator's allowance. His lawyers and bankers were like, no, he shouldn't. You're buying from him. Why is he giving you money? And I was like, listen, this is the deal we negotiate. If you don't like the deal, like you should negotiate something different. So that was an example where I love negotiating. I actually had a realtor that liked negotiating. But on those shows, I was surprised that it didn't seem like a lot of negotiating.
I don't know what they can show and can't show, but this makes me think you should add this to Wocstar Academy.
The art of negotiating?
Something.
Ooh, we could do that.
Something negotiation.
We could do that.
For someone who loves it, like anytime I tell you something and you're like, I'm thinking, my stomach drops. I'm like, God damn it, I got to go back now. But I do it.
And you're getting better and you're more confident.
I just do it, but I don't like it.
But you're getting better. The butterflies will go away. That sinking feeling's going away. I see it in you.
All right.
Okay. All right, listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode. We'll see you soon. Stay fabulous. Stay excellent.
Thanks for hanging with us. This podcast was produced by Wocstar Media in New York City at the Podstream Studios. Be sure to follow VCs Off the Record on Apple and Spotify. We're also on Sheconomy, the State of Women podcast platform. Please consider giving us a good review or share it with someone. Let us know what you want us to talk about on our socials and our YouTube channel. You can find us at wocstar.com for all the information.